Hi, this is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is Listening Beyond the Soundbites. We have a repeat visitor with us today, Ericka Redic. Ericka, welcome to the show again.
Thank you, Pat. Glad to be here.
Ericka is running as a candidate for Chittenden County and a conservative for Vermont. That's the title on your website.
Yes.
So that was good. Could you tell a little bit about yourself for our audience?
Yeah. I am a native Vermonter, born and raised here in Vermont, and very, very proud to say so. Actually, I was just thinking on my drive down here to the studio, this mimight be one of the most beautiful places on earth. I mean, when you're going through the mountains, I'm so grateful that I was raised here in a small town with parents who knew enough to teach me that there was a bigger world out there. And so I'm really grateful for that. And I went to Champlain College, so I have a bachelor's degree in accounting. I've been doing that for the better part of 20 years.
Nice.
Yes, my gray here, I've been trying to tell people, I've been trying to highlight, I'm not as young as you think I am. I'm 42. There's gray. Can we get can you zoom in on my gray
zoom in on the gray.
The editing booth? Sorry, excuse me. We moved back. So I moved to Texas in 2010, got married, started my own business, had a great time, and moved back in 2018 to buy my grandparents' house in Burlington. Yep. And I never know how to answer this question because there's so many aspects to a person. How do you know what to pick out?
Right.
Yeah. I'll just end with
that. We'll keep you talking. We'll find out. Was it one of those big old kind of houses in Burlington, which I love so much?
It's not. I wish it was like an old Victorian or something.
Exactly.
Oh my God, no.
Over by Champlain College, there are so many of them.
So beautiful.
Oh,
I told my husband, I was like, I want one of these someday. But no, it's just an old hockey house. 2-story triplex in the new North End.
Oh.
Right on the bike path.
Oh, nice.
So
nice.
Yeah, it's really lovely. Very grateful.
I do like Burlington. I don't go there very often. We just get stuck around here. Not that that's because we have a lot of restaurants and stuff in Montpelier, so we can keep busy.
Another really beautiful historic city in Vermont.
Yeah. So I just want to quickly talk about, you ran for the Burlington City Council.
Yes.
What did you learn from that experience, and what made you then decide, well, I'll run for the Senate?
Oh gosh, that is a really great question. I learned a lot, and I could go on about, people and volunteers and whatever. But the absolute most important lesson that I learned running for city council was that I was not running against Kurt Wright and Sarah Carpenter. I was running against apathy and ignorance. People are tired of all of the bull crap. They don't trust anyone. They have been sold a bill of goods over and over again by politicians saying, I promise I'm going to change your life. I'm going to make everything better. And then they don't answer your phone calls or your emails when you're having legitimate problems.
Right.
And then a lot of people who just don't know what's going on. And so when I say ignorant, I don't mean like stupid people. I mean people who just
oblivious
are not aware of all of the infringements on our personal liberties and all of the ways that the city council in particular and the mayor are really trying to take rights away from their citizens. And, even things like one of the things is in proposal stage right now is adding an $8,000 per room impact fee if I, as a landlord, as a property owner, if I wanted to take one of my rental units off of the long-term rental market and do Airbnb instead, they want to charge me $8,000 impact fee per year per room.
I don't know what to answer to that, Ericka. That's a really great economic development tool.
It's very shocking. Yes, they are, of course, trying to lay blame for the unaffordability in Burlington on the landlords taking advantage of the tourist economy that they've created.
I know a few landlords. They have a couple of comments to make about that back. I hope people are speaking up.
They are, but unfortunately, what we see happening is they don't care, and they're passing it anyway. And what's happening is the decisions are being made by these committees and these commissions who are filled with unelected committee members, right?
Appointed, right?
So they've been appointed, and they're making the decisions, and they're coming up with the way that this is going to work. And then the city council is just carte blanche saying, okay.
Great. Sorry you didn't make it. Listen, I checked out your website because now you are running for Senate, and as you will be in the general election because you're running as a Republican.
Yes.
And there's 2 Republicans running, so you're sort of guaranteed a spot on the ballot, which is a good thing.
Yes.
You lead off your introduction on your website by saying rigorous honesty. And I thought, well, those are 2 good words. Could you talk about that and why you chose to put that out there?
Yes, it is. Rigorous honesty is pretty much my life slogan for a number of reasons. But I decided to make it my campaign slogan intentionally so that people would understand what they could expect from me. So not only am I just going to tell you the truth as I know it, I'm probably going to hurt your feelings. So I am so honest that I'm not willing to lie to you to get your vote. I'm not willing to lie to you to make you like me. I'm not willing to lie to you in order to create some persona that you will then fall in love with and vote for. And that is, I've been told, not a good strategy. But, you know, I just, as I said a little bit earlier, politicians over and over and over again make promises that they know that they cannot keep.
For sure.
And I'm not going to tell you that everything I'm going to do is going to make your life better and I can save you and I can make everything comfortable, because I don't personally have the ability to do that.
Right.
But what I can do is my best to make sure that the government gets out of your way, that there are no barriers to you being the best and most powerful and amazing you that there can possibly be. And so much of the problem in Vermont right now is over-regulation on our industries. It's suffocating taxes. It is, people attempting to squash freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. We see our constitutional rights being smashed upon. And it's very curious to me, because I don't know if those people understand that the reason they get to be as ugly to some people as they are is because of freedom of speech. Right. And so that is my goal as a legislator, as a leader, is to just make sure that we are as much out of your to be awesome as possible.
Sounds good to me. You had also on your website 3 major priorities. And I just want, obviously these are excellent priorities and I'm all for them.
Thank you.
Whether you heard these from the people when you were campaigning for council or just when you were deciding whether to run or not, you have boost the economy, which right now they better get started, lower taxes, and public health and safety.
Yes.
Which all 3 are perfect. So why all 3?
Well, that is a great question. One is because you're supposed to have 3 when you're doing stuff, right?
Told you that?
There's a trick to having 3 of everything. But in all honesty, the economy is the big rock, and it is the number 1 absolute most important thing. Because when you have a robust economy where people can afford to live, where people can afford to take care of themselves, where they have hope for the future, they don't feel the need to go commit crimes. They don't feel the need to become a heroin addict, or they don't end up becoming a heroin addict. So many of the problems that we're seeing today, suicides now. We have more suicides. My understanding is we have more suicides this year now than we've had COVID deaths, as an example. So people are in despair here. And the way that you get through that is we have to have social services for people, but if there's no mechanism to pay for those social services,
Right.
and I think that's very lost on our current leadership.
Well, that's where the taxes come in, right?
Exactly. And so people think, well, how can we provide these services and lower taxes? Well, you increase the tax base.
Right.
So many businesses have left Vermont because the taxes have just gone up and gone up. The regulations are so... I've talked about the 3-acre rule before. This passed some of the stormwater runoff. Sounds great. The 3-acre rule sounds great. Sounds like you're doing a good thing. But if it costs a business hundreds of thousands of dollars, they're just going to leave.
Right.
And so there's all of this policy that looks nice on the outside that harms our economy, it harms our small businesses, it harms individuals, and they don't look at the second and third order effects, right? So if we want a clean environment, if we want plenty of social workers to help with our folks who are mentally ill and drug addicted and things like that, we need businesses here to generate income that is brought into the state of Vermont. So a huge portion of our economy is dependent on travel and tourism, right?
Right.
Which has been decimated because of the response to COVID. So we see, we're in very deep trouble. The way that you make sure that your economy is on solid footing is you produce things in your state. You don't wait and depend on people to come to you to give you their money. You create things. You create things that people want and you export it. That's how you generate money into the state.
Right.
And that's how you don't have to depend on other people or the generosity of the federal government, which really is the generosity of somebody in Wisconsin.
Right, right.
To make sure that your people are taken care of. That's what we need to do.
I think we rely way too much on the federal government. It scares me when I see that percentage of how much we really rely on them. It's scary.
And then we get resentful that they tell us what we are and are not allowed to do.
Well, we're taking their money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very strange.
So speaking of public safety, which you talked about, you were, I have to talk a little bit quickly about Saturday's interesting event. There was a group of us who were there to honor law enforcement and to remember those who have lost their lives and to thank the law enforcement officers for their service. And obviously we got visited by protesters. I don't know if they were all Black Lives Matter, but they were, I think, mostly Black Lives Matter. What was your takeaway from that day and things that have changed here in Vermont?
They were Black Lives Matter protesters. They were abolish the police protesters. And my sense of that day was just deep sadness and disappointment.
Right.
I'm going to take a step back from my reason for being there as a rally goer in support of law enforcement, and I'm going to step into the role of being the wife of a Black man. Having a family, my family now is Black. My father's side of my family is half Mexican. So we have very multiracial family. And Black people have legitimate grievances in this country in certain areas of American life, in certain industries, in certain places. No sane or reasonable person would argue with that, right? And so a lot of people hear Black Lives Matter and they go, oh, of course, obviously, of course, obviously. They don't understand some of the ideology that goes along with this movement, with the abolish the police movement, with the Black Lives Matter movement, not the words, not the phrase, but that organization.
Right.
And as a person who advocates on behalf of Black people, as a person who works with at-risk youth in the city of Austin, as a person who has a vested interest in making sure that this country is more loving and welcoming, I just go, who was made better with your F the police poster?
Right.
Who was made better with your ACBA, or whatever it is, ACAB? Who was made better by that? Whose Black life was made better with your vandalism?
Right.
Please provide me evidence. And if you can, we can have that conversation. But what I saw were so many people who I don't think that they understand how they actually harm any legitimate conversation that needs to be had in this country. So I tell people all the time, this is an example, our family's personal example. My husband's a filmmaker and an actor and a stuntman in Hollywood.
Cool.
Okay? For like 3 years, his agent, all the parts they sent him were thug number 1, drug dealer number 2.
Right.
I mean, it's gross, right? Like when the Oscars So White crap came on, I was sort of annoyed because I don't like the political correct culture and the wokeness of Hollywood. Like, you let Jeffrey Epstein and Harvey Weinstein be terrible people, and you want to try to have moral authority over me?
Right.
Please, okay? But they're not wrong, unfortunately. And that's the problem, is when your message is couched with ugliness and shame, or, I mean, just the vulgarity.
Just angry. Oh, anger.
You don't help anyone with that.
No. Well, you know, I wrote something on Facebook. I don't know why I keep telling people my age. I think I'm just glad I'm here. 77. I was brought up in a completely different way of behaving as a kid. I answered the phone, Zeller residence, Pat Zeller speaking, may I help you? Who does that? You get my grandchildren, And I stood up when adults came in the room. And when they left, my parents called me downstairs and I said goodnight. I have trouble relating to these kids. And if they want my support, they're going to have to look at the audience that they want to influence. We were all at that group, maybe 40 and older, and I'm probably being generous, 40 and older, up to 77 and older. And we don't take kindly to what we saw. And to take the time to learn and understand, it doesn't happen that way.
And here's the thing, Pat. Here's what's the most amazing part of it all. How do you differentiate between that woman that we've seen on the news being gross? I mean, who knows where she was? We can't find
None
this
of us
woman.
know her.
We don't know who she is. We don't know where she's coming from.
Right.
But she certainly sounded like she was saying some gross stuff.
Yep.
And I'll say that. Yeah, that lady was being gross.
Yeah.
How do you differentiate that from the disgusting vulgarities? All of you should die. Die, pigs.
Right.
Die. You should, like.
Right, right.
Why? Why would I respect anything that's coming out of your mouth?
Either one of them, for that matter.
You cannot differentiate your message from this other person that you say is gross.
Yeah, it was a bad day. I went home very sad as you were. So
Yep.
I thought, oh, but things have changed here, because that's clearly, everybody was saying the Vermont way. Well, I think the Vermont way is sort of changed.
Yeah.
So if you win, which
Yeah.
I hope you'll certainly get out there and get people to listen. What do you hope to accomplish in the Senate? Because it's a smaller group. Each has 2 committees. And there's really a lot of work on the plates, and they have a different relationship than the House as a body.
Yeah. I've had a lot of people ask me, oh, like, what kind of bills would you propose, or what would you suggest? And the truth is, there's not a law I would like to propose. There is a law I would like to repeal.
That's great. I'm right with you.
Yeah.
Can I mention a few?
Sure, please.
You just mentioned before about regulation.
Yeah, there's so many things that you just go, but why?
Right.
But why?
Right.
You know, you can look at the efficacy of these decisions, whether it's, higher taxes in certain areas, the way that the education funding is going. I would love to get rid of Act 46, return local control to the school districts. And, oh my God, there's so many things that I just go, this is harming Vermonters. And we have the evidence for it. And I just think that should be enough to make a different decision.
Well, they've been working on Act 250 for a couple of years, and that should be presented next January. So with any luck, maybe you'll be there raising your hand.
Yes.
So how, we're all in seclusion now. You've been working a lot with video and social media, correct? But when you actually are a senator, how do you hope to reach out? Because I don't think a lot of legislators don't do a good job.
They don't.
If anything.
They don't. My intention is to put myself on the chopping block on a regular basis. So I'm trying to be polite.
Oh, go ahead.
You know, our elected officials, whenever I message them, we'll say, I'm going to lump them all into a category, and I'm going to call them all elected officials. Senators, representatives, the governor, city council, the mayor, all of them, all of my elected officials. I email or call on a regular basis, and 99.9% of the time I don't get a response.
Wow.
And the 0.1% of the time I get a response, it's thanks for saying so, but I'm going to do what I want anyway. Bye. Yeah. And especially now with COVID, they're hiding.
Yeah.
We've had our NPA meetings. Burlington has what are called neighborhood planning assemblies, and they're non-elected officials, but it's supposed to be like your neighborhood getting together and talking about things, where they shut off the chat feature. You're not allowed to comment. You know, they're hiding, and I just think that's wrong. We are accountable to the people who elected us. And if you're going to get in there and you're going to just do whatever your party tells you to do, and you know what, you get to do that. But that's part of the rigorous honesty, is I am making myself accountable to the people that are electing me. I need to hear from them, and I need to know what's going on. And I'm not going to hide behind a computer.
Good for you. Because you can solve a lot of problems, because I find if they disagree with me, but if I had an actual answer that made sense, and they went, oh, okay, I see that. I see why you voted yes or no.
And don't we always...
They just want to be treated like part of the process.
And don't we always make better decisions when we work together?
Well, there you go.
Because I'll tell you what, I'm going to let you in on a little secret, Pat.
What is that?
I am not an environmentalist.
Uh-oh.
Do you know what that means?
Free to ask in this environment.
I'm going to need somebody to give me information.
Yeah.
There are people out there who know more about some of these things, and I'm going to get advice from them. Like, as an example, one of my supporters worked for Vermont Ag for many years.
Really great.
So he's taught me a lot about when we've talked about lake cleanup, as an example.
Oh, big issue, big.
So he said the only thing that would actually make a difference is drudging the rivers and streams.
Oh, yes.
But nobody will do it.
Yep.
So instead, we're going to spend $1 gazillion on a project that will never work.
Right.
Because it sounds prettier.
Do you know in 1991 when we had the big flood here, you know what would have stopped it? Dredging. I'll tell you all about that off camera. That was huge. It was, anyway, they wouldn't do it.
And see, this is, the problems that we're suffering from are of our own making, because we refuse to make the hard decisions that need to be made our legislators will not make the hard decisions that need to be made that will actually make a difference.
That's very true. That's true. Oh, we have 4 minutes left,
okay.
And I want to talk about one thing which is, I guess, mostly important to me. Because of COVID, we've been told we'll get through this year tight, but we'll get through it. But next year, it will be a real bummer. It will be now I don't want to say catastrophic, but very difficult, maybe catastrophic. What would you be prepared to do at the State House with the budget?
I don't think there's anything that can be done except to just cut services. Cut services.
How would you go about, I'm serious, because they've tried that, and of course the minute you say one service, 1,000 people come out of the closet, and it's hard to know without listening to people like you were saying, which ones to serve, maybe to combine them to do whatever. I don't know.
Well, we already have a tremendous amount of evidence of welfare fraud in this state.
Yes, we do.
And no one wants to talk about that. This is one of the ugly things that you're not allowed to talk about. Excuse me. But just the other day, I was made aware of a scheme in Burlington where people are buying up people's food stamp cards for pennies on the dollar, 25 cents on the dollar, to drug addicts, right? So these drug addicts basically are getting all of these services, all of these things for free, living on the street, whatever. So they'll sell their EBT card, as an example, to these people who buy it for 25 cents on the dollar. And then those people take those food stamp cards and buy the food that they sell in their stores. So,
Well, there's something that could be addressed, isn't there?
So when I say cut services, what I mean is, in a lot of ways, is tightening up our ability to make sure that the people who are getting these funds actually need it.
Right.
Because there are people who really do legitimately need help.
For sure.
I have been on food stamps in my life at times before. I grew up in the system. We had Section 8 when I was in high school. And so I'm not saying that there should not be a safety net for people who need it. But there's so much evidence of fraud that I don't see how we can let that continue.
And I like the capstone agencies use the phrase, giving a hands up, not hand out. And I always think that's what should happen.
Exactly.
You always help people, but you help them to help themselves eventually.
Yes,
That's great.
but more that's just one piece. The other thing is we have to open up the economy here. We have to open up the economy here. We do not have a choice.
Yep.
We do not have a choice. The majority of our funding comes from sales and use tax, meals tax, from other people coming here.
Right.
And people don't, so 75% of our property tax is school tax. But also the lottery pays for that, meals and use pays for that, sales tax pays for that. People don't understand that school funding comes from all of those places.
Right.
So that would be one big thing, is getting rid of Act 46, returning local control so that poor people in Fletcher are not paying for Burlington to send their kids to school.
I don't think anybody understands the way schools are financed in this state. I've heard it a million times, and I would have trouble presenting it to somebody.
It is, I believe that it is intentionally nightmarish.
Could be.
But, we've got people don't know. We have a $4.5 billion pension deficit.
Yep.
Billion with a B. And there are only about 350,000 working age people in the state of Vermont to pay that off.
Pay that off, right?
That's over $11,000 per Vermonter of working age.
Oh, I've never heard that number. That's staggering. We've done a couple of shows on the pension because it just makes me crazy.
And that's just the pension debt.
Yeah, right.
That doesn't include the other debt that we have. And now we're taking out more debt. It's
and there's
just
a lot. There's
astonishing.
the Lake Champlain. There's healthcare. It just goes on and on.
And there's so much. We're trying to do too much with too little.
Right.
We got to be like Texas, North Carolina, Florida. Be business friendly. Not 49th in the state for business friend, or 49th in the country for business friendliness. 50th smallest economy in the country. There's no reason for any of
You
this.
should flip it. They can do it if they want. We have run out of time. I'm very pleased that you were here.
Thank
Wish
you.
you luck with your race.
Thank you.
It's hard in this pandemic environment, but go get them.
We'll see.
Thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next week, and in the meantime, keep listening beyond the soundbite.